Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. My name's Tanya. Today's recipe is something that's a little odd as far as the ingredients, one being coconut milk and the other being curry powder. If you're not familiar with curry powder, chances are once you smell it, if you've ever eaten Middle Eastern food, you'll go, oh yeah, that's what that smell is. So this is a delightful dish. It only has 9 ingredients in the main dish itself, kind of the curry mixture, the chicken curry mixture. But you'll want to serve this with rice. So if you'll refer back to one of my videos, my earlier videos back in probably maybe February, I did a baked rice recipe. It's one I always fall back to whenever you serve anything over rice. I always say, go back to that video because once you make it that way, I doubt you'll ever cook it on top of the stove again. So this recipe is one that I've had for years. I just keep forgetting about it, but funny enough, every time I have tomato paste left over in the refrigerator, I keep it like in a baby food jar or something clear, so I'll readily see it. A lot of times when I open the refrigerator, I'll see that just maybe 2 tablespoons of tomato paste left in there and think, oh, I need to make something to use that. Oh, I'll make chicken curry. So this is one of those dishes. It prompted me to make it because I saw the tomato paste in the refrigerator. So take a look. Stick with us as we go through chicken curry, and then you'll see the final product within a couple of days toward the end of the video. I'm making it today, but we're having dinner with friends tonight, so this will be a meal for tomorrow maybe or the next night. So hope you enjoy it. And if you like these videos, please subscribe. Consider subscribing. If you've already subscribed, then think about sharing them with friends. There's other people out there that probably like to cook and just, you just get so tired of fixing the same thing. So hopefully this will bring some new things into their life, some things that help you make better choices as far as food going into your body. Food is medicine, sleep is medicine, but I'm helping with the food part here as much as I can. So hope you enjoy this. Thanks. Okay, here we go. I have my skillet heating up. I'm going to turn this not quite on medium heat, but just a little bit lower because my bigger burners tend to get a little bit warmer than what I think they normally would. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil, and I have about 1.5 tablespoons left in this bottle. So that'll be the last of that. And we're going to take and saute our onion in here. My recipe says for about 7 minutes after we salt it. So that'll give me enough time to cut up my chicken. I have my boneless, skinless chicken thighs over here. You can use boneless, skinless chicken breast. I just like chicken thighs just because they just seem more moist than chicken breasts do. I grew up in a household where my mother didn't buy anything but chicken breast. Even if she bought a whole chicken, she cooked the whole thing and then she took the chicken breast meat out and threw the rest of it away. I don't know where I came from, but you don't waste anything. But I find that chicken thighs are more desirable as far as texture. All right, so I'm going to sprinkle 1/4 teaspoon of salt over the onions once I get them in the skillet. And I want this to be at least a little bit warm. Takes a little while to heat up. The skillet's a little bit thick. This is just a stainless steel skillet, but they do take just a little while to heat up. Now I have these onions cut in slivers. These are not chunks. You can cut them in chunks. It's just more of a visual. So I tend to cut these in slivers, and that's what our recipe calls for as well. And these were so stinky, I cut them up. Ugh. I say stinky, I just mean they smelled strong. So I cut them up a while ago, and I actually put the cutting board over them because they were so strong. So anyway, got those cooking. Maybe they won't smell so bad. Well, smell so strong. I'll keep saying strong till I get the hang of it. Put about 1/4 teaspoon of salt on there. And in the meantime, we're going to open our package of chicken. Now this is what my chicken looks like. It's just organic chicken thighs. Pardon me. And I try as best I can not to get any of this chicken liquid on the countertop. I'm trying to keep it on the cutting board. If you'll notice, if you've ever bought chicken thighs before, sometimes there's a bone in it. Here's a classic example. Now, I'm not always happy about this, but I'm like, you know what? I don't work in the factory. I don't know what they do. There's a chunk of a bone right there. That'd be horrible for somebody to get a hold of that. So we'll just take our knife and gently cut that away. But you have to be really careful with that. So I'm all too aware of that when I'm cooking chicken thighs, that you have to watch for bones and gristle and stuff like that. I just kind of mash around on them. Now what I'm doing is cutting these up into chunks, about, I think it says about 1-inch chunks. Yeah, 1-inch cubes, chunks, whatever. And I always keep my little plastic tray in the bottom. I know that sounds crazy, but I keep these plastic trays. I run them through the dishwasher or wash them real good with hot soapy water, and then I use them in my garden to put my newly potted plants on, just to keep the moisture in. Okay, I think I've checked the rest of those enough to where there's not any bones in them. Now sometimes I'll cut these bigger fatty pieces away. It's not really that necessary. I'm not too worried about the fat, although if you have meat of, I guess, any kind, from what I understand, if there's going to be toxins in that animal and in that meat, it's going to be going to the fat. So I'm just a little leery about eating the fat, but if it's something organic, I'm not nearly as concerned about it. Oh, one little piece of bone I missed. So this is about the size pieces of chicken we're talking about. Similar to that right there. I hope I'm getting that in the shot. Okay, I'm going to turn that down a bit. Grab a spoon. Being careful not to touch anything else in my utensil bucket with my hands, just because I have chicken on them. Nobody wants raw chicken spread around their kitchen, especially me. I use it too much. My kitchen, that is. I use my kitchen too much. I don't want raw chicken germs. We're mainly just looking for our onions to get tender and translucent. And at that point, we'll start adding more ingredients. But hopefully I'm going to have enough time to wash my hands in between, because I'm not just going to keep touching this chicken. I don't mind putting my hands in it, but I don't want it staying on there. Now, we are not having this for dinner tonight because we're supposed to go to a friend's house. I don't know what she's fixing for dinner. I'm taking dessert. But this will be for dinner tomorrow night. So what I'll do is I'll prepare it right now. I already have my rice prepared. It's leftovers from the other day. So I have my baked rice in the refrigerator. And when I serve this up, then I will just let you see the final product once we have it on our plates. Maybe have this tomorrow night. Okay, time to wash my hands. I'm going to wash the handle of this spoon too. Okay, these are just about ready. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of curry powder to this. If you're not familiar with curry, once you buy it or open this jar, if you've ever had Middle Eastern food, this will smell very familiar to you. But it's a bright yellow product, and I think it smells fabulous. So 2 teaspoons of this. I'm going to sprinkle around in there. From what I understand, toasting it in the skillet, that heat just brings out a lot of the flavor of curry. So we're going to go ahead and cook this for about a minute more in the skillet. Makes it bright yellow. Again, with your spices, if it's something like curry, when you think you're not going to be using it for anything else, and you think, I'll try this, but I don't want to buy a whole bottle of it, or it's just too expensive to buy 4 ounces of it or whatever, go to a local grocer that has bulk spices in big jars, and you are able to buy just as small of amount as you possibly need. They'll weigh it and just charge you by the ounce for it. So that's a good way to buy spices. That's how I buy most of my spices now, unless I just need a bottle, like an entire bottle of it. Okay, next thing we're going to do is add our coconut milk. Let's scoop this back. For those of you who are on a restricted diet to where you cannot have gums of any kind, like guar gum, carrageenan, and stuff like that, this is a brand of coconut milk that I bought back when I was doing specific carbohydrate diet for a family member, and this is JIVA, so Jiva, whatever it's called, organics. It's unsweetened organic coconut milk. So the only thing, absolute only thing this has in it is 100% organic coconut milk. This doesn't have any guar in it. It's a BPA-free can and no sugars or anything, and it's organic. So this is good to have. So this is a 13.5 ounce can. So anywhere from 12 to 14 ounces of coconut milk. Make sure it's just coconut milk, not sweetened like you would add to some kind of drink or a dessert or something. You don't want the sweetened kind. Will definitely change the flavor. The fat content in this is pretty high, and that's what you want. And that's why you saw me shaking it so much. You would not ever just open a can of coconut milk and start pouring it out, because the good kind will have that layer of fat, almost like a layer of butter or cream at the top of it. Oh, I'm getting it on the stovetop there. And the fat does settle to the top, so once you start shaking it up, it should incorporate in, but every once in a while you'll have a layer of it just kind of settle around the edge of the lid. So be sure and get all that yummy goodness out of there. I'll turn our burner back up just a little bit. And the next thing we want to add is our tomato paste. I have 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. This is actually what prompted me to make this dish for a video, is because I had about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste left in here, and I remembered that I needed about 2 tablespoons for this recipe. This is not a full can of tomato paste, so I just didn't want this to go to waste. So the baby food jars of contents saves me again. I have to keep it in these clear jars or I'll completely forget what's in the container in the refrigerator. You know how you open those containers up and go, I didn't label it. I have no idea what this is, because it doesn't even look like food. It looks like a science project. But I could see that tomato paste just staring at me when I'd open the refrigerator. It wanted to be used. So not much tomato paste, just a little bit. Now we're going to get a can of tomatoes, and This calls for 1 cup of canned diced tomatoes, but of course I got my fire roasted here. That's the goods. So it's not going to be quite the whole can. We're just going to use part of the can. So pour our tomatoes in here as well. So 1 cup of diced tomatoes, whether you use fire roasted or not fire roasted. So we're going to cook this for about 5 minutes until it gets nice and thick. The tomato paste is going to thicken up because remember, tomato paste is tomatoes, but it has all the moisture almost taken out of it. So anything you're going to add it to is going to provide a thickener for it. This smells so good. It really smells good. You could probably stop right now before even adding anything else to it. It would be fabulous. Okay, I'm going to get a jar to put the leftover tomatoes in. Perfect. That gives us just a good amount for something else that we're going to cook soon. All right, we're going to add our chicken into our liquid mixture now. It's thickened up just a bit. I think probably stirring the tomato paste into it, it accredits for probably more than we know. Just making sure it's evenly distributed in there. So we're going to add our chicken and then just stir it around until the chicken is done. This won't take long, maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes, depending on how hot your mixture is in there and how high you have your temperature set. But the next step is, if you have fresh spinach, that's great. You're going to need about 3 cups of packed fresh baby spinach, which is 7 to 8 ounces. I have written on this. Keep looking at this recipe over here. It's in my cookbook that I wrote a few years ago. But what I've done is recently I bought the big container of spinach, which is a lot more economical than buying the small ones. So I buy a big, giant, I call it the little baby bathtub of fresh organic spinach. And then I use what I need out of. I weigh it on my digital scale that I use a lot for my sourdough bread making. And then what's left over, I'll put in a big zip top bag. I'll squeeze all the air out of it, stick it in the freezer. And that way, if I need something with chopped spinach, while it's still frozen, I take it out of the freezer and I just kind of roll the bag up and manipulate it to where the spinach is all chopped up. If it doesn't necessarily have to be broken up, I just leave it as it is. Now this is about 8 ounces from what I had left over from something else here a while back. So I'm never going to let it go to waste. Anything I don't use, I put in that zip top bag. I set it out a while ago just to start thawing, but we're going to add this to the mixture in a minute. So again, if you have fresh spinach, that's great. If you don't have fresh spinach and you've frozen some that was fresh, great. And if you just have frozen, go ahead and use that too, but you're going to need about 7 to 8 ounces. Chicken doesn't cook near as fast as shrimp does, but you can almost see it going from that translucent stage to an opaque stage, and it turns white, and you know it's pretty much done. So just remember, some of your pieces might be a little bit thicker than others, and it'll take them a little longer to cook through. If you're serving this immediately, please, please, please make sure it's cooked all the way through. If you're going to serve it in a day or two, you're going to reheat this up again, so it's going to be cooked twice. I'm not as concerned about that, but I still want you to cook it as thoroughly as you can. Don't get in too big of a hurry. But remember, it's also going to keep cooking. Just the cooling down process is going to take a while, so it'll still cook a little bit after you turn the burner off. Okay, mine seems to be pretty much cooked thoroughly, but again, I'm going to cook mine again to reheat it for tomorrow. So we're going to put our spinach in there. Now, if you're using fresh spinach, it's going to look like there's way too much to fit in the skillet, but once it starts wilting, it just goes in there and fits perfectly. It's almost like packing for a trip. You look at that pile of clothes and you think, that's never, ever going to fit in my luggage. And yet, once we sit on it, it does. It fits in there just fine. That's what I find every time we travel anywhere. I think that's never going to fit in there, but it does. The spinach adds flavor, but it really adds a lot of color to this dish too. If you like your dish spicy, you're more than welcome to add something to it like red pepper flakes or something that's hot. Chipotle peppers, if you want to, I guess would work. But we tend to like it just like this. This is not a spicy dish at all. So although it says curry, it's not a spicy curry. Now I've had spicy curry before. I'll tell you this while this is finishing cooking. We went to Scotland on a mission trip back, it's been 35 years ago, a group of maybe 20 of us. And we were there for about 2 weeks in Cumbernauld, Scotland. And one of the last nights we were there, one of our hosts decided to make curry for us. Everybody kept asking us. They found out we were from America and they said, number one, do you know Michael J. Fox? That was the popular thing to ask at that point. They wanted to know if we had guns on us. They wanted to know if we had gymnasiums in our school. They wanted to know if we knew Michael J. Fox. Who knew? So it was interesting. Then they wanted to know if we'd had curry, and we kept thinking, why do they all want to know if we had curry? It's almost like a new restaurant coming to your town, and you have a visitor coming to your town, and then you ask them, have you eaten at such and such, thinking, that's the new restaurant, I'm sure they'll like it. Well, apparently it was new to them, maybe. I don't really know. I never have understood that. But everybody asked us if we'd had curry yet. So the last night we were there, the host decided to prepare curry for the big group of us. And they warned us ahead of time. They said curry can be spicy. They had all the condiments to go with it, like shredded lettuce and raisins and coconut. It was just the strangest mix of food I'd ever seen. I was not a foodie back then. I liked food, but I wasn't aware of all these things. Still, just remember, country girl here. So they said the lids to the pots are labeled, 2 big giant stock pots on the stove. The lids are labeled, one is spicy and one is not. Everybody in our entire group headed for the mild version of the curry, except for my husband. He was bound and determined he could handle the spicy, and they kept saying, it's pretty spicy. Well, the rest of us sat down to eat after we prayed, and we started eating it, and I looked at someone and I said, I can't even feel my tongue. This is so spicy. I don't even know if I can finish. And I was hungry. I was willing to eat it, but I just couldn't. So I just started eating raisins and stuff like that, all the condiments around there, trying to put the fire out of my mouth. we looked over, my husband was just shoveling it in as fast as he could, and we could not figure out what in the world was going on. He ate the spicy one, we ate the mild one, and yet we're dying over here. And I said, how are you eating that? He said, oh, this is so good. I can see why they kept asking us why we had it yet. It's so phenomenal. Then someone emerged from the kitchen and said, apologies, we got the lids mixed up. So we were eating the spicy version, and trust me, they were not kidding when they said it was spicy. So I'm just here to tell you, just because this says curry, don't misunderstand. This is not spicy at all. But you can add spice to it if you want it to have some heat to it. So anyway, the funny story about curry. Okay, our curry is just about done. This is a beautiful, beautiful mix of stuff. This will thicken up just a little bit when it cools off. But I'm going to turn our burner off, and we'll come back. This will probably be tomorrow's dinner or even the next day, but I will try to remember to video a serving of this when we plate it up and have it for dinner. So we will see you back here in just a moment.